Well, you've made a lot of films, music videos, and television commercials. I'm going to go through a list, and you tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
Ooh, like is it a one-word sort of answer?
Well, you can answer it with a story if you like, or however you like it.
Okay.
The first one's Mac Tonight.
Mac Tonight, the job that gave me a career, basically. Mac Tonight was the McDonald's campaign with the crescent moon guy that was sat on my head. It was a big mask. And I sat at a piano and floated on a cloud and sang about burgers and fries. For 3 years I did that, 27 commercials later, and that's what bought us our first condo. So I owe McDonald's a lot for that. That kind of gave me the hunger for more showbiz. Yeah.
Okay, how about this one, The Newly Deads?
Oh! The Newly Deads. Well, you know, we all have that first movie, don't we? The schlocky horror film that we said, sure, just to get our face on camera. That was The Newly Deads for me. Oh my, not straight to DVD, it was straight to VHS tape. So that dates it a little bit. And yeah, I was the first death in the movie. There was a transvestite zombie killer going on this murdering spree throughout a honeymoon resort hotel, and I was the first young newlywed to get slaughtered with a curtain rod through the back of my head and bleeding all over the young missus who was screaming on the bed. My mother was so proud. Yeah.
Oh, how about Hocus Pocus?
Oh, Hocus Pocus. Now I love Hocus Pocus. It was one of my favorite movies and favorite roles I've ever done. Billy Butcherson I played, the dead, goofy zombie guy that was Bette Midler's ex-boyfriend from 300 years before, and she kind of awakened me to help her on her mission of evil, and you thought I was a bad guy because I'm, this zombie guy chasing the kids around, but I was actually just trying to let them know I was okay. And finally, at the end, when I could cut my mouth open and say some things, it was like, oh, he's a good guy. Oh, he's a good zombie. See, there are good zombies out there, people.
How about Batman Returns?
Batman Returns, yeah. That was my first foray into the comic book genre film. And Batman Returns was such an exciting project because it was a sequel to a hugely, hysterically popular film franchise. And when Batman Returns opened at theaters, it was the #1 box office movie of all time, opening weekend at that time. And I got to play the Thin Clown in that, which is kind of the story of my life, if you know what I'm saying, Brian. The Thin Clown I was one of Danny DeVito's Red Triangle Circus Gang sidekicks. So whenever Danny DeVito as the Penguin went, I was usually around him going, in about 6 scenes. Yeah.
You were also in a pretty popular episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer called Hush.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I loved the Hush episode of Buffy was one of those things that no one had any idea how that was going to break out. When you do a guest role in a television show, it can come and go really quickly, and you can be very forgettable. The Buffy the Vampire Slayer show, though, it's this enigma. It's like this thing that no one knows where the power that it really has, and the fan base for it is loyal to this day, loyal to that show. And so you take an episode that Joss Whedon, the creator of the show, wrote himself, directed himself, and it becomes something very special. Especially when he took a daring chance to make over half that episode in complete silence. My character, I was the leader of the gentlemen, these floaty beasts that were very kind and courteous to each other, but tearing people's hearts out. So there was that oh, aren't they not? Oh, so this come here, ah, that I like characters like that are very ambiguous. They seem polite and nice, but oh, there goes my heart. So, I do enjoy that kind of character a lot. And a character that couldn't hear the human voice or his head would explode. So I had to take away the voices of everybody in Sunnyvale. And so that meant over half the episode was done in silence, where nobody could talk. And that meant for a lot of visual storytelling on TV in a medium that is very, very, let's just inundate your senses. Blah! Don't turn the channel. Blah! You know, in a medium that does that, to take away audio was really daring. You know, and most networks would have said, oh, you know, we're going to lose viewers. Quite the opposite happened. You had people going like this on their TV screen, going, you know, watching because they didn't want to miss anything, because it without sound it just drew you in, and you did not turn the channel. So as I go out in public now, the Buffy fans come up to me, they still find me, and they say, do you know your episode was my favorite episode of that entire series? That and the musical episode of Buffy are the two that keep getting mentioned over and over again over the years. And TV Guide has been very good to us, saying that the gentlemen were the scariest villains the show has ever had, and possibly the scariest villains television has ever had. So that was quite a coup to have TV Guide give us a stamp of approval like that.
Absolutely. How about Mimic?
Mimic was one of those things. They shot it up in Canada, up in Toronto, and then when they came to LA to do reshoots, to, you know, finish up the film right before it opened, I got a phone call out of the blue from the Rick Lazzarini shop, I think, of the Creature Effects shop. They were finishing up the movie, and the tall, skinny guy they had in Toronto to wear this bug man costume thing that was haunting the subway system of New York City and making Mira Sorvino's life hell. She was a doctor in that movie, you know. I just want to reiterate that. The phone call that I got was, can you come down tonight for a night shoot? And I was looking at my watch going, but I'm free, I guess I can. So I went down for this night shoot to wear this bug costume with a trench coat, kind of a man bug sort of mutant looking thing. And I had no idea what the movie was about or anything. No script, nothing. I didn't see anything. All of a sudden I'm standing on the top of a roof with a rain machine going, and there's this director down on the ground yelling up at me like, you know, lean over farther. And it was this delightfully tubby man with the face of an 8-year-old boy. And I was like, oh, isn't he delightful? Anyway, so, and that's all I saw of him. And then the next day, I came back for some close-ups in the studio. And that's when I got a close-up look at our director, Guillermo Del Toro. And at lunchtime that second day, he sat down with me at the table. And he looked at me and he said, so, you've done this kind of work before, yes? And I said, oh, yeah, I've worn lots of creature suits and, you know, makeups and things over the years, yeah. So tell me what you've done. So I started listing off the jobs, and he goes, oh, I saw that. That was good. Yeah, that was good. Yeah. And then he's like, well, what makeup artist did you work with? So I started listing off, you know, the people I'd worked with, which, I mean, at that point in my career, that was 1997, I'd already worked with some of the greatest makeup artists in history, like Stan Winston and Rick Baker and Tony Gardner and Mike Elizalde, and like the list goes on and on. And Guillermo was like, oh, I like his work. Oh, really? What's he like? You know, all of a sudden I've got, you know, I'm questioning myself. Now, are you directing a major motion picture or are you a fanboy? We know, which is it, you know? And delightfully and happily, he is both. Guillermo del Toro is both. He's a fanboy first. And so I found that out that day, you know, that I'm, this delightful Mexican man was telling me that his background was in Mexico, starting off as a creature effects makeup artist. That's why he loves monsters so much. I mean, he grew up loving monster movies and horror films anyway. And then he told me that he got his start in show business as a creature effects makeup artist, and then moved into writing, directing, and whatnot from there. So I was like, oh, well, then he's one of my peeps. You know, that's how we had this bond. So before he left that day, he said, do you have a card? And I'm like, oh, sure. So I gave him this goofy ass card that was like a picture of me that I drew myself, and I had duplicated of me going like this, with my phone number coming like out of my mouth, kind of a thing. Whatever. So so he was like, oh, that's great. Put it in his wallet. And so then I can continue the story, but 5 years later, 5 years went by, and I remembered Guillermo del Toro well, but you know, kept on doing other jobs, and I went on, and my career kept blossoming. But I got a phone call here at home 5 years later in 2002, and it was everyone at the newly formed Spectral Motion creature effects shop, headed up by Mike Elizalde, and creature designer Steve Wang and sculptor Jose Fernandez had all been like finally finishing up this a maquette for a movie called Hellboy, and the character was one of Hellboy's sidekicks, Abe Sapien. Oh, this is that very maquette. And when they did this sculpture, this beautiful long limby fishman mutant, they all sat back from it, and one of them said, "Huh, that looks like Doug Jones." And then everyone else goes, "Oh, that does look like Doug. I've worked with Doug. So have I. So have I. So have I. So have I." You know, and it was like, and then Guillermo Del Toro said, "Doug Jones. I know Doug Jones." Pulled my card out of his wallet 5 years later, and they called me, and that is how Hellboy 2 happened, or Hellboy happened for me. Yeah. So that Hellboy was then the movie that really cemented my relationship with Guillermo Del Toro. It was my, Mimic was my 3 days stint with him way back, so I can count that as my first movie with him. But Hellboy was the movie where we really learned a director-actor relationship and a director-actor language and a shorthand with each other that then carried us on into the phone call that I got for Pan's Labyrinth, which was, no one can play the fawn character Pan but you, Doug. Really? You've got to be kidding me, right? And what I found out about Guillermo Del Toro, if I can just go into this.
Yeah, those, you pretty much went on to the next two.
Okay, great. What I can say about Guillermo Del Toro, what I learned quickly about him is that he is the type of director who can tap into an actor's soul really quickly. He knows your persona. He can sum you up. He's very, very much a people connection person, and so within a day, he knew what my capabilities were. He knew what my limitations were. He knew what buttons to push to motivate me. He knew what buttons not to push that would like ruin me for the day, and he does that with every actor he works with. You could be side by side with other actors, and he will talk to each one of us very differently from each other on the same day in the same scene. So it's a true testament to his people skills, and his people skills also come out in his writing and in his directing and his storytelling, because all of his storytelling and all of his writing is very much about the human condition and all about people. Even though he's like creating fantastical worlds with many colors and many creatures and many fantastic sets and locations and everything, but it's all really comes down to a relatable human being type story, always.
So how does your character Abe Sapien differ from the first time we met him in Hellboy, now in Hellboy
2? Well, Hellboy 2 has been a long-awaited, 4 years since the first Hellboy. So it's been a long-awaited treat for all of us, really. The viewing audience, I hope, and definitely for us, those involved with the film. Abe Sapien has grown and expanded so much in the second movie. Now, in the first film, he was a delightful character. He was but kind of a one-note intellect, clairvoyant. He could, do this and tell everything about every object in the room and all about you. So that was obviously established as the power that he brings to the BPRD team. In Hellboy 2, you'll see that again, of course, but you also get to know Abe on many other levels. You'll get to know more of his sense of humor. You'll get to know more of his relationship with Hellboy and the brother type relationship that they have, best friends, brothers that they are. You'll see more of that on screen. You'll see some relationship time with his sister and friend, Liz Sherman, played by Selma Blair. And also, and he seems to be kind of like the brother in the Hellboy and Liz Sherman, marital relationship too. He's kind of like the third man in this odd relationship thing. You'll also see Abe Sapien wielding a weapon this time. You'll see him hands-on with bad guys or bad creatures. And we have a plethora of all of them, and so there's a lot more action for Abe. There's a little more relationship for Abe. And my favorite part of Abe's storyline is this love interest that he has this time. Something new for him. He's an old soul with a long history that we're not even sure where he started. He doesn't even know where he came from. So now that he meets the princess of the elven underworld, Princess Nuala, played by Anna Walton, who did a fantastic job with this. She chewed this part up. And Abe discovers her and finds her on it. It's like she was his little find. They're out doing a little mission somewhere, and we end up in the troll market. Oh, and the troll market is one of the most delicious scenes I've ever been able to work in. The sets and the characters all around us. That we had hundreds of extras in costumes, and it was a wacky creature fest. It was amazing. In the troll market is where Abe happens to glance and see the princess, and so that's I start following her, and because something's different about her, I can tell, and the story will unfold. I don't want to give anything away, but so Abe has a certain ownership of this new find of his, and when they do speak to each other for the first time, they find each other as very, very compatible souls. They're both a little bit of a lost soul, and they understand each other. They understand the clairvoyant power with each other. They really have a connection, and she's in exile. She's running away from her family because what makes this an interesting story plot point is that Princess Nuala is the twin sister of Prince Nuada, who is our nemesis bad guy. So you can imagine the issues that might all bring up. And what happens for Abe is he's in love for the first time. He's having this puppy love crush thing. He doesn't understand what's going on in his emotional. I have an emotional life. This is something he never knew before, and it's all because of her. It's all because of her. But she's to blame. Darn it. And it will again touches on the human condition. We can all relate to that first time that we were like, oh, over somebody, right? And it's a nice way to like revisit those high school crushes that you had, or my very first girlfriend, Mary Jonas, from high school in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was a stupid idiot, a stupid drooling idiot during that time, and so Abe Sapien kind of gets to go through that on film in front of all of you. So, and him being the brains, the intellect of the operation, this will it compromise his decision-making powers? I remember being in high school and my decisions weren't always sound or intellectual when I was having my first crush love, was it? Yeah, right. Not really. So that adds a nice little subplot to the story that's going to make the fan girls swoon a bit. It's going to make the fan boys gaga a bit. Anna Walton. Can I go on about Anna Walton enough? And she's, not only is she long and model beautiful, she's also, she embodies that role and takes on this regality. She's a regal princess who doesn't have to act like it. She just is. And I say she's Cate Blanchett good. That's how good she is. Wow. Yeah, we'll be seeing more of Anna Walton for sure.
Do you have any news on Hellboy 3? There's been a little talk here and there.
There's been a little talk of Hellboy 3 here and there, but premature to say too much about it. Guillermo Del Toro had Hellboy 1, 2, and 3 up here all along. That's always been the plan. When he's recently has said that when making Hellboy 2, he had Hellboy 3 already kind of in mind, so that we were able to make Hellboy 2 with certain setup potential for Hellboy 3, and then certain things that we didn't want to duplicate that would we can't do this here because we might do that there, or we need to do this here because of what might happen here. So there were certain considerations that he said he wasn't able to make in the first Hellboy because he didn't really have these next two stories fleshed out all the way when we made the first Hellboy. But now that he has thought about it, he said that this kind of helped him along. So So yes, I think we have a Hellboy 3 to look forward to. The issue now is we might have another 4-year wait, as we did between Hellboy 1 and Hellboy 2, because Guillermo is going on to work on the Hobbit movies, and that's a 4-year commitment for him. So it looks like we're going to have about the same length of wait between now and Hellboy 3. So I do hope we get to make it. I hope we're fortunate enough to bring Hellboy back to you, and with all the fun characters and all that. And and I think by then, Ron Perlman and I could easily be the oldest superhero comic book people ever on film ever. I think so.
You've been called the undisputed Lon Chaney of our times and Mr. Fantastic Elastic. How do you feel about that?
Are those actual quotes?
Yeah.
Wow! That's really a huge compliment. Now I have heard equations with myself and Lon Chaney and Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi, and you know what? It warms my heart to hear those names come up in the same sentence with me, because that was the golden era, of films, and that was a time when people in heavy makeups and creating these fantastic characters on film were given such dignity for doing so, and that kind of went away for a long time. And then I think that hopefully we're bringing that dignity back to that kind of filmmaking and to the golden era. I hope that with my name coupled in the same sentence with Lon Chaney, that I'm not tarnishing his image or his legacy. I hope that he would be proud of me today, with people tossing his name in with mine, and I hope that Bela Lugosi and that Boris Karloff would also be proud and happy for me as well. I admire their work so much, and I wouldn't want to ever say myself that I'm anywhere near their league, because I think they're such classic icons that I can only hope to be half that good one day.
Well, there's some rumors circulating around that you may reprise your role as a Silver Surfer in Alex Proyas' new movie. Do you have anything to say about that? Is that just a rumor, or is that...
Well, as with any franchise potential kind of character like the Silver Surfer, I did sign a standard 3-picture deal. So having completed my first movie for them, they have 2 more. They have the option to use me 2 more times. So whether or not 20th Century Fox exercises that option or not is up to them. If they make the Silver Surfer movie a standalone film that was kind of in the plan all along, then I would hope they would come back for me, and I would hope that we would get to make this, because I loved the Silver Surfer character so much. I loved researching him and finding out about him and getting to know him and respecting him so much. I mean, the Silver Surfer is everything that I'm not. He's statuesque, and he's beautiful, and he's poetic and philosophical, and very sacrificial, very Christ-like, and very angelic. And he's got the power cosmic, which is largely unbeatable. So that's a lot. That's a lot of fun to get to know and to try to become. So yes, I believe that J. Michael Straczynski wrote a script a little over a year ago and was talking about it at San Diego Comic-Con last year. Of course, in the meantime, there was a writer's strike and all kinds of things happened. But so as far as I know, there's a script out there. What's being done with that script, I don't know. It's really none of my business until I get a phone call. So I just hope that the phone call does come.
Hey, you mentioned The Hobbit a little bit back. Do you think there might be a role for you?
Well, we were just at the Saturn Awards a couple nights ago, and Guillermo Del Toro was on the red carpet with me, and somebody asked him on camera in front of me, what do you have for Doug in The Hobbit? And it was like, oh, on the spot, Guillermo has kind of, he's always given me a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that when he makes something, there's something in it for me. And that was kind of confirmed that night. No commitments, nothing official to report at all, and he said so. But he said, I'm sure that there's something for Doug in The Hobbit. You'll be seeing him, but I said I'll put him through some kind of torture, some kind of hell, some kind of obliteration of features, that kind of thing. And then he said, listen, I have nothing official to say about it, but if I made a hemorrhoid commercial, Doug Jones would be in it. So that, there you go. That's the quote from Guillermo himself.
Great.
Which I would probably play the hemorrhoid, by the way. I know.
I'm sure you would. That's great. So you do a lot of huge Hollywood movies, but you also do some independent films. Can you tell us about some of those?
I can. I love the world of independent film. I really do. As does Guillermo Del Toro. Between big studio films, the big studio film is exciting and fun to do, and they get the financing that independents can't get. So you have, with the studio film, you have the potential to do so many big things that cost a lot of money, and create visuals and effects and get star power into your films that, like, wow, that's a huge movie. The independent film, though, is so fun to do between these projects because you have more creative freedom. The director does, the writer does, the actors do even at times, because there is no umbrella corporation over the creative force with marketing ideas and product placement tie-ins and demographic considerations, and that you don't hear anything about that when you're working on a little indie film. You just work on here's the story we want to tell, and let's tell it. So when you're doing a movie like a Pan's Labyrinth, for instance, which was an independent foreign film on a foreign film budget, everybody that worked on the film took a pay cut. We all did. But when you read a script like that, you realize this is going to be something else. This is going to be something special. And Guillermo Del Toro was left to make his independent film on his own terms, with his own storytelling, and his without any rules being handed down to him from any umbrella above him. And 6 Oscar nominations later, you realize that's what happens when you let a director who's a genius do his own thing. So I like working on independent films, and and even if it's a small thing with a $30,000 budget, I still always want to look at the script. If somebody has something to offer me, I want to look at the script. If I read a script and see the story, and if it's well written, if it's a character that I relate to, if I'm being presented with a character that interests me, that I can connect with, that I want to get to know, that's one thing. If it's that character's in a story that I want to help tell, that interests me, that's moving somewhere and has, like, oh wow, that's the second thing. And the third thing is a sit down and meeting with the director, where I can see what his vision is, what his storytelling is, and where the character in this story are going to go under his tutelage, if I can use the word tutelage in front of you. So when those 3 things are in place, then I'm fairly easy to get, for an independent film, if I've got time in my schedule to do it. So I recently now of course we'll mention one movie that you were involved with, Mr. Brian Corder, but I did I've got a couple of things on the docket. I just finished an indie film called Super Capers. It was a superhero spoof movie where I got to play a knockoff of Agent Smith from The Matrix. How much fun did I have with this, right? And Ray Griggs was the director-writer on that, and I think it's very family friendly. It's very clean. It's very it could have good television possibilities. I think mostly really good. And I'm about I did another film has it been a couple years now since we did Carnies?
Yeah.
Yeah, but a movie called Carnies that was very much I love the way the script was written. Was very much like a play. There were lots of blocks of dialogue that were challenging, and that offered me a different kind of storytelling that I'd never done before, and a character that was quirky and so fun to find his soul. And I like the relationship between. I played the snake handler in the movie. His name was Ratcatcher, or Ratty for short, right? And I was kind of like a sidekick best friend to the the strong man of this circus sideshow freak carny thing that we had going on, that traveled around. And so the relationship there was very, very brotherly and kind of nice too. So it was a nice thing to unfold on film. And of course, there was a horror element to it too, to keep the horror fans happy that might know my work. So it seemed like a no-brainer that it was something I wanted to do. So hopefully we'll be seeing Carnies soon, won't we, Mr. Brian Corder?
Very soon, very soon.
Okay. And
How did you prepare for the role, Ratty?
how did I prepare for the role of Ratty? During my sit down with you, the director of the film, one thing you said is that the main thing that you said was, I picture him as kind of a Renfro character. Ah, Renfro. So I thought, pale, skinny, emaciated, kind of creepy, and yet there's a sympathy to him too. And I love characters that kind of go two ways at one time. You know, there's like a creepy, like, ooh, nobody understands this character. Why would you? He's kind of weird. And then the other part is like, well, no, if you look into his eyes, there is a real soul in there, and he's a pathetic individual at times, you know. So bless his heart. So you want to back away from him, but bless his heart at the same time, you know. So that was the most important piece of information I had in preparation for that character, and I did love Ratty a lot.
Well, you also handled snakes and a rat in the movie.
Can I tell you?
Tell me about that.
Listen, I have a major, like, hey, to things that go like this, creatures, and I play creatures like that all the time, but I realize when I'm wearing rubber, and I realize when it's a piece of organic nature in front of me going, ah, you know, on the ground, and a rat with that little skin tail, something about that just makes me, you know. So I'm a snake handler in this movie, and which means on film I had to handle snakes. And snakes are another creepy crawly, like, and I'd never touched a snake in my life, and I never wanted to. And before this movie is over, you had a boa constrictor lying across my lap, and I was petting him, and I was in heaven. For some reason, I took this boa, and we bonded very quickly, and I overcame my fear of snakes in like an hour. It was amazing. And the rat that you had for me too, the rat was, I was catching rats, and you had a couple from a pet store that were precious little things. And they were just they were innocent little, like, babies. So I was like, okay, I'm not afraid of rats anymore either. Well, shoot. Well, what's left? Yeah, alligators. I'm still afraid of alligators.
Well, Carnies is set in the 30s. How do you like working on period pieces?
I love period pieces. It's always fun to play with costumes and hairstyles, and the language too was a little bit different. You know, we don't talk in such modern vernacular when you're getting to do a piece that's set in the 30s. So it was it's fun to explore a different era and how different a character might be that comes from that era. Yeah.
What do you think is the most important thing a director should bring to the set? I mean, aside from coffee.
Aside from coffee, yeah. The most important thing a director should bring to the set is a very strong vision of storytelling. He is a storyteller. Oftentimes you'll see in movie credits a film by so-and-so, and that's the director of the film. That's a film by, you know. There's a lot of people that have involvement in that film. You've got producers, and you've got technicians, you've got everything from the technical side to the creative side to the business side. All this makes a film, but it's called a film by the director. So it really is his story to tell. And I like to feel that I'm an important playing piece in that game board that the director is setting up. But if the director needs to have a good vision of this whole entire game board, and to know what piece goes where and when, and when does checkmate happen and how does that come about, he needs to know all that. And and that means that every piece, every pawn, every rook, every bishop, every king and queen, every piece on that board, he needs to know the heart and soul of it and the intention of it and where they're going and why they're going there. Because every actor comes to the table with their own ideas of their own character. Sometimes the director needs to tweak that a little bit, and so that everybody's on the same page and working together to tell that same story that the director has in his vision. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.